Welcome back to CessTalksSports, BWISE PoliSports Tea Time. This isn't about highlights. This is about power, labor, and control. The 2025 WNBA season wasn't just basketball. It was money showing up, labor pushing back, and the league revealing exactly who it protects and who it pressures. Yes, the league grew, but growth came with conflict, contradiction, and a fight over narrative ownership. We saw record valuations and corporate interests. We also saw CBA brinkmanship, racist fan backlash, inconsistent officiating, and a rebrand that raised hard questions about race, visibility, and marketability. Let's be clear. This season wasn't about storytelling and strategy. Black excellence wasn't just challenged on the court. It was reframed, softened, and redirected off it. A'ja Wilson delivered another historically elite season. And instead of centering dominance, the system bent itself into knots trying to sanitize it. That's not new. That's how whiteness has always been protected in American sports media. So today, we're doing both, celebrating real growth and naming the systems that still need pressure. We're breaking down the business of women's basketball, the politics shaping league decisions, the media narratives driving fan behavior, and the racial dynamics deciding who gets grace and who gets scrutiny. This is a season review, but it's also a reality check. And this is a community conversation. Chat is open. Drop your questions, pushbacks, and observations. We'll pull from the chat, run polls, and engage live because fans who think critically are part of the power equation. And I'm not doing this alone. When it's labor, race, and leverage, I bring backup. Joining me is political Lil, sharp, direct, and unafraid to name systems. Lil understands this league isn't just negotiating contracts, it's negotiating its future. Lil, frame this season for the people. Why does 2025 change everything?
Thanks, Auntie Seth. And you're exactly right. This wasn't just a season, it was a stress test. The 2025 WNBA season exposed what happens when a league built on Black labor and Black excellence finally reaches real economic value, but hasn't yet resolved who it's willing to empower once the money arrives. Growth doesn't automatically mean justice, and this year proved that the league infrastructure, media partners, ownership, and governance still struggles when Black women are not just participating, but dominating without apology. What stood out most to me was how quickly the narrative shifted from celebrating the league's success to managing discomfort around who's driving that success. When Black players like A'ja Wilson, Angel Reese, and others assert dominance on and off the court, whether through performance, activism, or labor leverage, we saw a familiar response, reframing excellence, inflating alternative storylines, and manufacturing controversy to dilute power. That's not accidental, that's political. It's about controlling perception at the exact moment players are demanding a bigger share of revenue, voice, and protection. The CBA negotiations made that tension unavoidable. Players opting out wasn't just about salaries. It was about structural respect, revenue sharing, travel, healthcare, safety from racist abuse, and post-career security are all tied to whether the league truly sees its players as partners or as assets to be managed. And race sits at the center of that question because historically, when Black women gain economic leverage, institutions rush to contain it rather than expand it. So as we move through this season review tonight, I want folks to listen for the patterns, not just the moments. Who benefits when certain players are elevated and others are ignored? Who absorbs the risk when fans' behavior turns hostile? And who is being asked to be patient while the league cashes checks? Because the future of the WNBA won't be decided by growth alone. It'll be decided by whether power finally shifts in a way that matches the labor that built this league in the first place. And that's really the tension we're sitting in, because while the power dynamics are still unresolved, the growth is undeniable. The league didn't just grow this year, it accelerated. More eyes, more money, more corporate interest than we've ever seen. So before we interrogate who benefits most from that growth, I think it's important we ground this conversation in reality of just how big the 2025 season actually was. Auntie Seth, walk us through what the numbers tell us, because the business of the WNBA changed in real time this year.
The numbers told the truth this season. Viewership didn't spike, it stuck. National broadcast broke records. Streaming numbers climbed across the league. Local markets showed consistency, not curiosity. That matters because habit-forming viewership means the WNBA is no longer emerging. It's established. Whether gatekeepers like it or not, it's established. Fans weren't just watching highlights, they were watching full games, following teams, engaging across platforms, getting mad because it was 7 games on at the same time. That's infrastructure, not hype. Merch followed the momentum. Jerseys sold, signature shoes moved, lifestyle collabs hit. And here's the key. Fans weren't buying names, they were buying meaning. They invested in players with identity, with dominance, with cultural resonance. That tells you the audience is sophisticated. They value substance over media manufactured marketability. Now let's talk shoes, because this is where culture meets economics. Asia Wilson's signature drop wasn't just a product, it was a cultural statement. Black excellence, community pride, athlete-led storytelling. That drop proves something important. When players control the narrative, merch becomes more than commerce. It becomes cultural power. Angel Reese took it a step further. Her shoe wasn't just about style, it was about advocacy, cyberbullying, social accountability, protecting young athletes, especially Black women. Angel turned a commercial release into resistance. That's not branding, that's leadership. And ticket sales sealed it. Arenas were fuller, secondary markets stayed active, home court energy became real again. This wasn't one city, this wasn't one storyline, this was league-wide demand. When fans show up in person, spend real money, and build culture around teams, that's not hype, that's proof.
That growth is exactly why the $2.2 billion media rights deal matters so much heading into 2026. This deal is supposed to be a financial bridge between what the league is and what it claims it wants to be. More revenue, more exposure, more leverage for players in CBA negotiations. On paper, it's transformational. But money doesn't just expand opportunity, it amplifies existing priorities. And this season showed us what those priorities currently are. We saw an extreme oversaturation of national broadcast centered around one player, Caitlin Clark, who appeared in 41 nationally televised games, including 5 heavily promoted matchups against Angel Reese. That rivalry was marketed relentlessly, often stripped of the content and reduced to character. Meanwhile, the defending WNBA champions, New York Liberties, led by Stewie and Ionescu, Star Power, and the champions before them, the Las Vegas Aces, led by reigning MVP Asia Wilson, were largely absent from the national spotlight. That's not just an oversight, that's a marketing choice. And that choice reflects a deeper issue. One-dimensional storytelling in a league overflowing with elite talent. Instead of marketing the WNBA as a constellation of stars, styles, teams, and dynasties, the league leaned into a singular narrative that narrowed the audience understanding of the game. That approach might deliver short-term numbers, but it undermines long-term equity, especially when Black excellence is consistently sidelined once it becomes too dominant to be palatable.
All right, we want to hear from y'all, fam. Drop it in the comments. Did the national broadcast reflect what you were watching this season? Do you think the league did enough to spotlight all its stars, or did the coverage feel repetitive and limited? And how should the WNBA balance growth for fair representation as we head into this new media era? We're going to pull your comments, and we'll talk about that in our live show. Before we even touch controversy, though, we have to respect the hoop. The 2025 rookie class didn't tiptoe into the league. They kicked the dough in. No easing in, no shrinking under pressure. They showed up ready. Paige Beckers came in with the weight of expectation, and she met it. Efficient, composed, surgical. She didn't hijack possessions. She elevated systems, and that matters for long-term league growth. Citron, that wasn't rookie energy. That was pro readiness. Pace, physicality, fearlessness on both ends. She showed exactly how deep this incoming talent pool really is. And Okikiola's rise was a reminder, not a surprise. Development plus opportunity equals impact. You can see her confidence expand week by week. Momentum, not moments. This rookie class didn't ask for permission. They set a new baseline, and the league felt it.
What's important to name here is how differently these rookies were framed. Paige was immediately positioned as the story, while others had to earn visibility through sustained excellence. The imbalance isn't about talent. It's about familiarity, comfort, and media habit. When one rookie is treated as the league savior and others are treated as footnote, it shapes fan perception in ways that extend far beyond a single season. The danger isn't celebrating Paige, it's centering only Paige. Because when we reduce a rookie class this strong to one face, we flatten the league's future. Citron and Kiki didn't need narrative scaffolding. They built their case on the court. And if the league is serious about long-term growth, it has to resist the urge to recycle the same marketing shortcuts instead of doing the work of telling richer, more inclusive stories.
All right, fam. Y'all let us know which rookie surprised you the most this season. Who do you think has the highest ceiling moving forward? And do you feel the coverage reflected what was actually happening on the court? Drop your takes. We're going to check on them. Before we get into controversy, we have to name the truth. The 2025 rookie class didn't arrive quietly. They arrived ready. No grace period. No easing in. They played like the league already belonged to them. Paige Beckers came in with the weight of expectations. Meta, efficient, poised, high IQ basketball. Produced without hijacking possessions. And that matters for long-term growth. Citron's emergence was loud in all the right ways. Physical, fearless, two-way impact. She didn't look like a rookie. She looked prepared. Kiki, her rise wasn't a surprise. It was a reminder. When preparation meets opportunity, growth shows up fast. Confidence up, role expanded, consistency locked in. This rookie class didn't just add talent, it reset the timeline. The future did not, it walked straight in. Before we move on, I want to hear from the chat. Did the coverage match what you actually watched, or did some players disappear unless a headline needed them? Because the biggest issue this season wasn't attention, it was distribution. Some players got saturation coverage. Others, including champions and dominant veterans, became background noise. This wasn't about performance. It was about marketability defined through a narrow, familiar lens. Black women who dominate without apology were framed as physical or treated as routine. Meanwhile, similar or lesser performances elsewhere were labeled groundbreaking. That's not subtle. That's structural. The defending champions were sidelined. The reigning MVP was undermarketed. The dynasties were muted while simplified narratives were pushed instead. Media narratives aren't neutral. They're curated. And when coverage trains fans to only recognize one kind of excellence, it doesn't just erase players, it limits the league's future.
Media coverage doesn't exist outside of politics. It participates in it. What we saw this season was the media functioning as a gatekeeper, deciding which stories felt safe to amplify and which ones needed to be softened, sidelined, or ignored. When Black women athletes gain too much cultural and economic power, coverage often shifts from celebration to containment. That's not accidental. It's a response to discomfort with who is controlling the narrative. And the consequences are real. Sponsorship opportunities follow visibility. Fan perception follows repetition. When media outlets overinvest in one storyline, they starve the rest of the league of oxygen. That's not just unfair, it's bad business. If the WNBA wants to grow beyond moments and into permanence, it has to demand better storytelling from its media partners, especially as it enters a new broadcast era with unprecedented leverage.
Y'all let us know in the comments, where did the media get it right this season? And where did they fail? Were the players or teams you followed that rarely showed up in national conversations? And do you think the league should hold media partners more accountable? Y'all drop it in the comments. We're going to check it out. Now, what we covered so far doesn't stop in media narratives. It spills directly into fan behavior. And this season, that spillover got ugly. As the league grew, so did the hostility. Racist abuse towards players, especially Black women, didn't just increase, it intensified. This wasn't random. It followed visibility. It followed success. It followed moments where Black women disrupted someone else's storyline. After nationally televised games, during manufactured rivalries, anytime a Black woman stood between a narrative and its preferred outcome. And let's be clear, harassment at this scale doesn't happen without permission. Institutional silence functions as permission. What gets lost is the human cost. These players are asked to perform at elite levels while absorbing racialized hate in real time. That environment wears you down. It affects focus, trust, safety, and belief in the league's promise of protection. When players speak up, they're labeled divisive. When they stay quiet, they're left exposed. Either way, leadership failed them. The league's response this season was reactive, not protective. Statements came out, consequences did not. No consistent enforcement, no visible coordination with platforms, no real deterrent for repeat behavior. And when a league brands itself as progressive but won't enforce protection, that gap matters. It tells players exactly where support stops, and it tells fans exactly what behavior will be tolerated. That's not just a PR problem, that's a leadership problem.
Racist fan behavior doesn't emerge in isolation. It reflects a broader political climate. We're in a moment where racial hostility is increasingly normalized, where harassment is framed as free speech, and where accountability is treated as censorship. Sports become a release valve for that resentment, especially when Black women occupy positions of power and visibility. The WNBA didn't create that climate, but it's responsible for how it responds to it. And here's the hard truth. When a league fails to act decisively against racism, it makes a political choice. Neutrality is not neutral. Silence is not safety. The WNBA has built its brand on social justice rhetoric, but rhetoric without enforcement becomes hollow. If the league wants players to be bold advocates, it has to be equally bold in defending them when the backlash comes.
All right, this is important, y'all. Y'all let us know. Do you think the WNBA did enough to protect players from racist fan abuse this season? And what's your real accountability look like from the league and from social platforms? Now let's talk about the issue nobody escaped this season, officiating. No matter the team, the whistle felt inconsistent, possession to possession, quarter to quarter. When rules shift in real time, fairness disappears. And once fairness is gone, trust follows right behind it. This season, officiating disrupted game flow too often. Identical contact produced different calls. Late whistles flipped momentum. Players adjusted, refs didn't. As the league gets faster and more physical, inconsistency isn't neutral. It changes outcomes. And fans weren't imagining things. Patterns started showing. Some players were allowed to play through contact. Others were penalized immediately. Physical Black players were labeled aggressive. The same play from others was framed as tough or scrappy. That perception matters even when it's unspoken. Officiating isn't just about missed calls. It's about standards. This season exposed a lack of transparency around referee evaluation, discipline, and accountability. No clarity, no public correction, and no confidence restored. When the league refuses to explain the whistle, speculation fills the gap, and that gap erodes credibility with players and fans alike. That's not just a basketball issue, that's a leadership issue.
Officiating is neutral. It reflects institutional norms. Bias doesn't always show up as a blatant favoritism. It shows up in who gets the benefit of the doubt, who physicality is criminalized, and who emotions are policed. In a league dominated by Black women, that matters. When officiating appears inconsistent, it reinforces existing power dynamics rather than simply enforcing rules. And the danger here is credibility. Fans will forgive close games. They'll forgive losses. What they won't forgive is the feeling that outcomes are manipulated or unevenly enforced. As the league grows and the money increases, officiation has to evolve with it through better training, transparency, and accountability, because legitimacy is the foundation of everything else the WNBA is trying to build.
All right, y'all let us know. What did you notice about officiating this season? Were there games where the whistle clearly shifted momentum? Do you believe certain players or teams were officiated differently? Let us know in the comments. Now we step into the part of the season, review the league with rather whisper past, because growth without power analysis is propaganda. By the end of the 2025 season, the WNBA has 0 Black female head coaches, not reduced, not limited, eliminated. Let's be clear. This didn't happen by accident. This was a result of a sequence of decisions that all landed in the same place. In a league that is majority Black, built on Black women's labor, marketed through Black culture, that outcome demands scrutiny. And when we examine the replacements, the pattern sharpens. NBA adjacent men, male college coaches, and male international hires. What we did not see, investment in Black women assistants, internal leadership pipelines, continuity for coaches who already proved they could lead. Experience was suddenly redefined and conveniently narrowed. Legitimacy became something Black women no longer qualified for. That's not neutrality. That's a power shift. This aligns with what many are calling a gentrification strategy, a rebrand that centers whiteness, male authority, and outside validation. And let's not ignore the timing. This happened during a broader backlash against diversity across sports, media, and corporate leadership. When institutions feel pressure, they don't expand opportunity, they consolidate control. So no, this coaching purge doesn't exist in isolation. It mirrors a national pattern where equity gets framed as excess and Black leadership gets treated as expendable. And if the league wants us to believe this was about basketball reasons, then they need to explain why the outcome was so perfectly uniform, because patterns don't lie and silence doesn't make them disappear.
Here's where we have to be precise. Title VII violations don't require a memo that says exclude Black women. They're established through patterns, outcome, and disparate impact. When an entire class of qualified professionals, Black female head coaches, is eliminated league-wide, while similarly situated groups are retained or elevated, that's not a coincidence. That's evidence. especially when the replacements overwhelmingly come from outside the league's existing talent pool. If the pattern holds, the WNBA isn't just risking legal exposure, it's undermining its moral authority. You cannot market yourself as a progressive league while structurally removing Black women from leadership. You cannot champion player empowerment while stripping power from those who mentor, protect, or advocate for those players. And you cannot grow sustainably by alienating the very community that built the league's credibility in the first place.
Do you see this as a coincidence, incompetence, or coordinated restructuring, fam? Should the WNBA be required to explain how it eliminated all Black female head coaches? Y'all let us know in the comments. We're going to check for this for the live discussion. Now, everything we've broken down leads right here. When systems stop listening, labor responds. The WNBA is no longer in a labor conversation. It's in a labor crisis. Let's be clear about the process. The CBA deadline didn't just pass. It was extended, then extended again. In labor history, that's not neutral. That's a stall tactic. Extensions without movement are designed to exhaust workers, test unity, and delay leverage. Players know exactly what time it is. When deadlines shift, what power doesn't, the message is simple. Management is buying time, not negotiating in good faith. And that brings us to the real issue. Basketball-related income, not bonuses, not optics, not PR-friendly talking points. Ownership has drawn a hard line against revenue sharing. That decision exposes the truth behind the growth narrative. You cannot celebrate billion-dollar media deals, rising valuations, and corporate expansion while keeping players disconnected from the revenue they generate. That's not partnership, that's extraction. And once labor recognizes extraction for what it is, the fight stops being symbolic and becomes structural.
Players voting overwhelmingly to authorize a strike is not symbolic, it's structural. That vote signals unity, clarity, and readiness to disrupt business as usual. And it should be understood as a rational response to a closed negotiation posture. When leadership refuses to engage on revenue sharing, labor's only remaining tool is collective action. That's not radical, it's foundational to labor law. What complicates this further is the NBA's influence. Public statements attribute the league's leadership rejecting BRI outright, reinforcing what many players already feel, that the WNBA is being treated as a subsidiary, not a sovereign league. That power imbalance matters because if the NBA sets the ceiling for what women players are allowed to ask for, then negotiations are constrained before they even begin.
It says CessTalksSports and BWISE PoliSports. We're naming what too many are afraid to say. Reparations. Not charity, not symbolism, remedy. The pioneers of this league built its value under suppressed wages, limited mobility, and zero equity. That labor created today's profits, and it was never fairly compensated. When a system benefits from exploitation and refuses to self-correct, reparations become policy logic. That's not radical, that's accountability. And this is where the road gets real. When negotiations stall, revenue sharing is rejected, and racial and gender exclusion repeats, litigation becomes necessary. Lawsuits are not threats, they are tools. Title VII, labor law, antitrust, courts exist for moments exactly like this. When power refuses to move on its own and justice requires force, not patience.
We need to hear from you on this because this will shape the league's future. Do you support players striking if BRI remains off the table? Should revenue sharing be non-negotiable in a billion-dollar league? And do you see reparations as legitimate labor demand? Drop your thoughts in the chat. We're taking them into the final stretch.
So this is where the conversation gets real, not hypothetical, not emotional, but predictive. After a season defined by growth on the surface and resistance underneath, the direction is becoming unmistakable. From where we're sitting at CessTalksSports and BWISE PoliSports Tea Time, the signals are clear. This league is heading toward a stoppage. Deadlines have passed, extensions have stacked, and the core demand, BRI revenue sharing, has not moved an inch. That combination is not negotiation, that is positioning. Labor history tells us exactly what happens next when ownership refuses transparency and partnership. Workers withhold labor. A strike is not chaos, it is leverage. It's the moment players say, we understand our value and we will no longer subsidize a system that profits from us while denying us equity. If the league believes growth continues without the labor that created it, that belief is about to be tested. This is not about threatening the game, it's about protecting it by forcing a system built on extraction to finally reckon with power. And if there's no movement on revenue sharing, no transparency, and no recognition of players as economic partners, then a 2026 season is not guaranteed. This is what happens when labor stops asking to be included and starts demanding to be respected.
When we say sue, we are not talking about chaos. We're talking about correction. Courts exist because power rarely relinquishes itself voluntarily. Labor law, Title VII, and antitrust frameworks are designed for moments exactly like this. When negotiations stall, disparities persist, and exclusion becomes pattern. Lawsuits don't destroy leagues. They force them to tell the truth under oath. And finally, seizing power. That doesn't just mean higher salaries. It means a league with a new economic model and less NBA control. It means revenue sharing, governance influence, protection from racist abuse, leadership pipelines that don't erase Black women, a future where players are not grateful guests in a billion-dollar enterprise they built. If that level of power shift feels threatening to ownership, that's because it is, and that's the point.
We want to close this by hearing from you. Do you believe the league is headed toward a strike? Would you support players sitting out the 2026 season to force real change? And what does justice look like for this league moving forward? Do you believe there will be a 2026 WNBA season under the current CBA conditions? Let us know. 2025 took us through it on PoliSports Tea Time. Labor fights, revenue battles, power struggles, truth-telling. We broke down the WNBA CBA, exposed structural inequities, and followed Black women who weren't just playing the game, they were disrupting it. And the audience, you showed up with insight, accountability, and real engagement, especially around fan power, media framing, and economic justice. What this season made undeniable is this. Black women in sports are not waiting for permission anymore. They are leading, they are building, they are demanding equity, not applause. From NIL to Unrivaled, from labor organizing to ownership conversations, from player impact to front office accountability. This wasn't just a season recap, it was a warning and a blueprint, and we're not done.
And the conversation doesn't stop here. In 2026, we're diving even deeper. In January, we'll explore the stories from Unrivaled, the new professional league shaping the athletic landscape. February brings the next chapter of the Disruptor series, celebrating Black women in sports excellence and continuing to challenge the status quo. We'll also keep following the WNBA CBA negotiations, potential expansion, and the work of Respect Her Game advocacy group, because fan activism is just as powerful as the game itself.
Thank you to my co-host, Political Lil, who has joined in on taking this ride with me, and to everyone who pulled up, engaged, and thought critically with us today and throughout the year. These conversations matter, and so does community building them. Keep questioning the narratives, keep applying pressure where it belongs, and keep standing on business for Black women in sports. Y'all stay tuned. Talk soon. We out.